Transformations keep failing because leaders can't read their own rooms. Young credit union professionals are ready to lead, but no one's opening the door for them. And the metrics credit unions trust most may be the ones giving them false confidence. Today's episode is about the gaps hiding in plain sight. Welcome to Grow Your Credit Union. This is the podcast where credit union leaders come to share knowledge with their peers and the next generation of credit union leaders. I am your host, Joshua Barkley. Before we begin today's show, I want to first mention our sponsor, Pure IT. They've helped over 170 credit unions navigate technology with assessments, strategic advising, and managed IT services. You will hear more about Pure IT later in the show. I'm joined by my co-host, Becky Reed. Hello, Becky.
Howdy, y'all.
Howdy, y'all. Becky, we normally do a banter segment where I ask you a personal question, where I kind of delve into who you are. You know what? I want to reverse course today. I want you to ask me a question, Becky. I want to see what curiosity you have about me.
What is your favorite book? It could be fiction or nonfiction. So tell me about your favorite book or book series you've ever read in your life and why.
So my favorite book of all time is, and I'll preface this by saying I've always had a big fear of death. Every couple years, for about a week or two, it's all I can think about and I'm frozen in it. So there's a book called Tuesdays with Morrie, and it is a true story, and it is about a journalist who, one of his mentors, his old former professor, is dying, and he comes to visit him every week on a Tuesday, and he sort of watches as his older mentor is in the midst of dying and learning life lessons about life, about death, about everything, our entire existence. And it had a profound impact on me. I've read it multiple times, and it does make me feel better about my mortality. So Tuesdays with Morrie. Now let me reverse course and flip this back on you, Becky. What is your favorite book?
Well, I wish I had a profound experience that I could tell you about with a book. So mine is a fictional series. So I've always been a Stephen King fan. And as a matter of fact, I read my very first Stephen King book when I was in like third grade, and it was Cujo. So I've read pretty much everything that Stephen King has written. Some of his newer stuff, not as much, but there is a series called the Gunslinger series. And it starts with the very first book called The Gunslinger. And they've made a movie about it and so on. But it's like a 10-book series. And that book series was probably the most enthralling and complex series that I've ever read, but definitely my favorite by far.
Okay. Love Stephen King too, gotta say. Salem's Lot is my favorite book by Stephen King. Becky, I'm glad that you asked me that question. That's a really good question.
I'm so glad we had this discussion, Josh. Thanks.
I know. I know. No, thank you. So it's time to roll out the red carpet for our guest. Today's guest is the president and CEO of Dort Financial Credit Union, Brian Waldron. Brian, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
With that hiccup. Okay. Kaylee, so you said something. According to McKinsey, roughly 70% of transformation efforts fail. And the root cause is almost never a bad business case or technology. According to the article, it's a people skills gap. So they say the culprit of all these transformation failures, by and large, is leaders who were promoted for domain expertise and technical brilliance, but who misread the room. People who don't know how to communicate, people who are lacking those interpersonal skills. And I thought about this a lot, Becky, because credit unions, they navigate core conversion transformations, mergers, the AI rollouts taking place right now. And those are all big projects that need to be successful. So I'm wondering, Brian, When a credit union transformation stalls, whether that's a core conversion, whether that's a merger, an AI rollout, some of the stuff I discussed, how often do you think the real breakdown is people skills at the leadership level?
Oh, it's 100% leadership skills at that level. I think it's really important that leaders start communicating from the very, very beginning of a project to get the entire team to buy in, and that has to roll downhill. But it actually starts way before any project starts. You have to create that in your culture, Josh. And you have to start from the top, and you have to make sure that everyone is on the same page. You have to break down silos, and that takes a lot of work and effort. And a lot of times we get to the point where we think we made it, and we stop putting the effort into that piece of it, and we move on to something else, and we fail to revisit that as often as we should. Here at the credit union, we take that into account almost every year. We always work on our communication level. We talk about employee engagement. We talk about how we're leading from the top all the way down through every layer of the organization.
So this starts way before the transformation happens.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. In fact, I can give you a good example. So we are actually looking at a core change internally. And as we were walking through this process with our consultant, we're going to put a video out so the entire team can see from me how important this is to the credit union's future, so that every person who's going to touch this new system will understand how important it is for our growth, our strategic plan, and our members.
That is a great point, and I want to kick this over to you, Becky. How much of this is leaders not communicating organization-wide as to why the transformation is important to begin with? Because I feel like we're like, oh, we're going to do a core conversion, and people are like, why?
Well, where I will take that is it's always been confusing to me why IT is always in charge of a core conversion, or any technology conversion for that matter. So what I see in credit union land and what I have seen for 30 years. So let's talk about a core conversion for a minute. So what usually happens in credit union land, and again, I'm going to speak in generalities, the executive team decides that there needs to be a core conversion. Now, I can tell you that most people in the organization probably know that the core that they're using is not working the best way. So I don't think it would be a surprise to even the tellers that the leadership is making a change. But the process of choosing the core, usually what I have seen, it doesn't involve the right people. So as a executive in my organization, I use the core like 10% of my day. Right? I don't get in and use the core every day to do my job because I'm looking at reports, I'm talking to leadership in the organization, I'm dealing with the board. There's a whole different thing that I do as an executive in a credit union that other people don't necessarily do. So a teller uses, and a call center person and a loan officer, they use the core every single minute of every single day, but they are not in the room deciding what core to choose. And so what we did at Lone Star is we allowed our operations people to choose the core, or at least have a say in the process, right? They were part of the RFP process. They were in the room whenever we saw all the demos. And they were in charge. Ops, not IT, was in charge of the implementation because the core needed to be built around what the employees using it every day needed. And so when we engaged the right people, that really helped with the communication process because a branch manager, for example, was part of the core team that was doing the core conversion. And that branch manager absolutely could understand what it was like to be a teller and could explain to a teller how to do something because they helped design it. And so part of that communication is just engaging the right people in the process.
Brian, anything to add with 30 seconds left in the segment?
Yeah, I certainly don't want to disagree with what Becky said there because she's absolutely correct. I don't think IT should always be leading that organization. The one thing I will add, though, is I do think it's really important as you're preparing for any change, but since we're on the core topic, let's keep it there. You need to make sure we understand that we're not taking a new core and making it the same way we've always done it, right? So those people need to be in the room, but you need to have someone brave enough to say, nope, we're not doing that. We are not going to change the system to make it go the way you are used to it. We're going to try it this way and become more efficient.
Is the credit union industry failing to develop its young professionals? A young professionals panel at the 2026 Governmental Affairs Conference made a pointed observation. Credit unions aren't merging because there's no one to lead them. They're merging because no one is developing the next wave of credit union leaders. According to the panel, there are young, engaged credit union employees ready to step into leadership roles right now, but the problem isn't the pipeline. It's the current leaders. Well, they're not opening the door to the boardroom, to mentorship, to real responsibility. So, Brian, when you look at how credit unions are actually developing the next wave of young leaders, where is the biggest gap, you think?
I think it's a good observation. I think what we need to take a look at is why are people not willing to open those doors and what are we guarding against? I personally believe that we need to create that next generation of leaders within the organization. We have to have those conversations very candidly. I have a group of 4 executives. I know that one wants to be a CEO somewhere else, right? And wants to have that in her career path. And so I take responsibility of getting her ready for that next jump. The problem is we are always talking about retaining employees and keeping them and keeping your talent, which is true, but we're still not listening to what they want in their career path. And so, yes, do I have things in place that are going to keep her for 2 to 3 years while I train her and make sure she's ready? Absolutely. But I know that I need to get the next person behind her ready so that she can move on to be a CEO somewhere else. But I do believe we owe that to this next generation of leaders. And I think we have failed at that, if I'm being very honest with you.
Like what you said there, Brian. So you're listening to what your employees want, which may not necessarily be a future at the current credit union that they are at now. Really like that you're building these sort of personalized paths for your employees. Becky, I found this article really compelling because it's one thing for us to talk about how young leaders aren't being developed, but it's another thing for them to call it out and say it themselves. Right? For them to have a panel at GAC and say this, that's how they're feeling right now. Why do you think young leaders in the industry are feeling like they're not being given this pathway to leadership?
Well, I don't think they are. And the reason I say I don't think they are is what Brian is doing in his organization is amazing. And there are lots of larger credit unions that are helping young people gain opportunities, have cross-functional training in different departments and absolutely not trying to keep them there for 30 years, right? Want them to spread their wings and be able to go somewhere else. The problem is that the go somewhere else, there's a blocker. And I don't know exactly what it is, but I absolutely loved the story of Dan Daggett. I don't know if you guys know Dan. He is a credit union guy and a CUSO guy. Credit Unions First is the CUSO that he heads up now. But he got an opportunity to be a CEO at like 23 years old at a really small credit union. I don't see that happening right now. To me, I think it's the leadership of the credit union, whether it be the board or the existing CEO, that for whatever reason doesn't feel like a 23-year-old employee can run a $50 million credit union. I think they can. I think a branch manager at a $250, $500 million, $1 billion credit union, yes, there's probably some things that they would need to learn. They can't be compared to the existing CEO who's been doing everything for 35 years, but they should be given an opportunity. And there are resources and there are tools and there are mentorship programs and there's all kinds of things that 25-year-old, that 28-year-old, that 32-year-old has access to that they would make an amazing small credit union CEO. And so instead, boards and CEOs are choosing to merge instead of give a 25-year-old a chance. When I was 25, I would have jumped at that and I would have been a great small credit union CEO. I don't know if it's generational bias. I'm not really sure exactly what is happening, but I do see the same thing and I think they have a right to gripe about it. I do see it happening.
Brian, you talked about how you develop your pipeline of talent, which is, in my opinion, on its surface, the way it should be done. But I want to kick the question that I asked Becky back to you. There's a little bit of irony here because They've organized as young credit union leaders, right? And they still do not feel like they're given a pathway to leadership in this industry. So why do you think they're feeling this way?
You know, if I think about it, and Becky brings up a really great point, I do think there are some opportunities for a 25-year-old, a 28-year-old, a 32-year-old to become a CEO of a smaller credit union. I think the problem there becomes there's a pay gap. Right? You can actually make more money at a larger credit union as a branch manager than you can as the CEO of a small credit union. And boards don't understand some of these issues. And so why would someone who's 28 years old with a young family say, I'm willing to take a pay cut to go do this? Because they may not see the next step forward, right? So you may have to do a temporary pay cut to move forward, but they don't see that. And that is a difficult thing to say to anyone, to take a pay cut, right? So I think that is a key issue. I think the other key issue, and I'm not going to make friends here when I say this, right? But I think we have two generations that are kind of sitting here and fighting about it. I'm Gen X, so I'm kind of in between. So I won't name generations, but we'll go with that, right? And here's what happens. We've had one generation sitting at the top for so long, not really doing much, status quo, letting it be, getting mad when these young guys come in and change the way the credit union industry is with naming rights and bank acquisitions and all this stuff. And so they get mad and they want to sit there at the top and wait till their retirement date. And then we have the young people, too, who necessarily aren't willing to move. I had to move across the country 3 to 4 times to get to this position. I put my time in, did what I needed to do, moved my family, took risks, took chances, and did that. And I just see both of those things failing from those two sides of the generation. Again, I know that's not going to make me friends, but I think we really need to take a hard look at things before we start tossing, rocks in glass houses. You have to be willing to put your time in. It doesn't always happen quickly. 2, you have to be willing to move. I'm telling you right now, to become an executive, you have to put your time in and learn from different people at different segments of your life. And I think this generation that's above me, it's time for them to step out of the way and give this role to others.
For nearly 10 years, Pure IT has helped credit unions modernize their technology, strengthen their cybersecurity posture, and build strategic roadmaps that align with their mission to serve members. They don't show up with a one-size-fits-all solution. Instead, Pure IT meets your credit union exactly where you are, whether you're tackling infrastructure upgrades, navigating regulatory pressure, or trying to stretch a small IT team across big institutional priorities. Pure IT's approach is simple. Put strategy first, reduce complexity, and give leaders the clarity they need to make confident technology decisions. With deep experience across cloud alignment, cybersecurity resilience, and long-term IT planning, they empower credit unions to operate securely, efficiently, and with purpose. If your institution is ready for a strategic partner who understands the unique challenges of the credit union world, visit pureitqso.com to learn more. That's pureitcuso.com. Pure IT, helping credit unions build technology that works as hard as they do. Are credit unions measuring the wrong things? A recent article in QSO magazine argues that member satisfaction, the metric credit unions have leaned on for years, is not the same as member loyalty. And they say confusing the two leads to decisions built on comfort instead of commitment. This got me thinking, Becky, about other metrics that credit unions lean on. Let's call them feel-good metrics. They sound good, but they don't really indicate the health of a credit union. So, Brian, I'm going to kick things off with you. What is a metric that you think credit unions treat as gospel that is actually just a comfort number, something that looks reassuring on a dashboard, but it doesn't actually move the needle?
Almost all of them. Here's why I say that, because we like to compare ourselves with each other, but we don't try to understand the difference of what we are trying to do. So I have competitors across the city. Their numbers may be better or worse depending on what metric you're looking at: loan growth, ROA, share growth. But our boards sometimes don't understand the business we are trying to run and the differences between the two. So one, I think you need to understand your own business first. Stay in your own wheelhouse and understand what you are trying to do on your strategic plan and living out your mission. And stop worrying about the comparison metrics. There's a need for them. You need to look at them, but don't try to always make those your leader. Then the one soapbox I will always jump on is NPS. I don't understand the love with NPS. It is not a metric we should be looking at, and it's not a metric that I think gives us the full picture. And here's why. Because what about the employees, right? We are so focused on the member experience that we try and pull them in. Come on, I've looked at these numbers before. A member walks into a branch, they have a really great experience with Susie Teller, but they're mad they got denied for a loan 3 weeks ago. And when they get the NPS score, they score low, and it reflects on Susie and that branch they were in. And that's not a fair metric. Instead, let's focus on employee engagement. Let's focus on making sure we have the most empowered and engaged employees that we possibly can at the credit union. And guess what? If you give them a place where they are engaged and love coming to work, I guarantee you they're going to give the best member experience, not only to the member, but to their internal members when it's like IT talking to someone who's having a computer issue. NPS is another soapbox of mine. You're going to hit them all in these episodes.
Listen, I'm glad you brought up NPS because I give it no merit whatsoever.
None.
I'm sorry to anybody that I've worked under in the HR department, but when they talk to me about, the NPS, oh my God, it's a sleeping pill.
Yeah.
I mean, you're going to put me to sleep talking about NPS. It means absolutely nothing.
Nothing.
Becky, metrics that are feel-good metrics that we lean on and we talk about them, we sing about them, but they don't mean much. What are they? Give it to me.
Well, I agree with Brian. Everything that he said, I agree with. And one of the things that I used to always tell my board is a lot of times when you're a CEO, there are metrics that the board gives you to bonus or measure your performance on. And I would always tell them any one of those I can manipulate. If you want our ROA to go up, then I won't pay any dividends to anybody and I'll charge everybody a higher rate on their loan. If you need to grow loans, well, you know what? I'll lower my underwriting standards and we'll approve everything. That would be silly of me, of course, to do all of that. That would be unscrupulous of me. But certainly there are levers that I can pull in the organization to make things turn out any particular way. I mean, asset growth, membership growth, all of those things. There's so much nuance in it. You really can't hang your hat on any one of them. And what I love about what Brian is saying at NPS, and I completely agree with you, member surveys are the same, right? It's like whenever I talk about stablecoin, right? So I go around the country, I'm talking about cryptocurrency and stablecoin, and people ask me, they're like, well, our members aren't asking for this. And the analogy I come back to is, well, they didn't ask Henry Ford for a car either. So sometimes you have to give them something and show it to them, let them use it and see how easy it is, and then they change their behavior. I don't know that anybody, whenever they started with Amazon, said, I think I need groceries to show up at my door in an hour when I ordered online. No, they didn't even know that was possible. And so whenever you survey your members, what do they ask for? They ask for a branch on their street. That's what they ask for. I mean, is that really what they want to make them happy? Instead, let's take a look at how engaged our members are with us. Are they using the products that we offer? So I think one thing to look at, and again, it's not the end all be all, but products per member, right? I mean, did they just have a savings account with us and a loan that they got through an indirect channel? That's not an engaged member. So member engagement, I think, is something that is an important thing to measure. And you can have 1,000 different people tell you how to measure member engagement. But to Brian's point, employee engagement, that's one of the things we did at Lone Star. Employee engagement leads directly to member engagement. If you have happy and productive employees who are using tools at the credit union that work best for them so that they can put their best foot forward with the member, then the member is going to have a great experience most of the time. Certainly they get denied for a loan, they're not going to be happy, right? They don't get what they want, they're not going to be happy. But do they close their account? Or do they allow us to coach them and make sure that they get a loan the next time that they ask? So member engagement, I would say, if you measure it correctly based on your field of membership and your business plan and your strategic objectives, I think that would be one of the best. All the other ones, too arbitrary to really hang your hat on.
Again, I think Becky said it really well. The one thing I want to just caution everyone on is, I do think we need to be really careful when we talk about share of wallet and products per member. And here's why. There are so many things happening out there. I do think the current issue of primary financial institution is now gone. That's almost nearly impossible. I'm not saying that because we're not achieving it. I'm saying it because there are so many options for our members out there that I think we really need to take a look at how are we engaging with that member. And we can be happy with a car loan, we can be happy with a mortgage loan, and we can be happy with a credit card. And if it's two things for one member and one thing for another, as long as I am helping that member in their moment of need, I'm in a good place.
And I just want to say for the record, Brian, that in a previous episode, Greg Gallant, he proclaimed the death of the primary financial institution on this show. That brings us to the end of the show. Brian, do you have any final thoughts or plugs? Give it to us.
Listen, I think we hit a lot of really good topics here. I think they resonate with a lot of people within this industry. I encourage everyone to take a look at yourself and how you're leading your organization and how you are being a leader within that organization. Maybe it's time to get out of the way and let the next generation take over, or maybe it's time to maybe take that big, bold move and move to California for the next executive job that's open.
Brian, we like to ask all of our guests the best way to get in touch with them. So if someone's listening and they're like, man, I really like what that guy's putting down and I want to get a hold of him, what is the best way they can do that?
The best way is email bwaldron, WALDRON, @dortfcu.org.
Okay, Becky, final thoughts?
Give young people a chance. I think that for me, anytime I'm around younger people, look, I'm Gen X too, and I have a son that is Gen Z. And sometimes I look around at Gen Z and I'm like, they are from Pluto or something. I don't understand. And every generation has that, right? They're all like, those other generations are crazy. And then the younger ones think the older ones are crazy. I mean, it's just different. But anytime I'm around young people, I am consistently amazed at how smart they are, at how adept they are, how talented they are. They do their research. They care deeply about each other and their community. And so give young people a shot.
Becky, best way people can get in touch with you?
LinkedIn, baby.
LinkedIn, baby. That'll always be your response from now on, and I'm totally fine with it because it's so true. Listen, I want to send a special thanks to Brian. I want to send a special thanks out there to Becky Reed in Texas. I want to thank our sponsor, Pure IT. You can check them out at pureitqso.com. And of course, a special thanks to you, our listeners, for continuing to support and listen to another episode of Grow Your Credit Union. If you like the show, follow us on your podcast player of choice. If you want to be a guest, or you would like to talk about sponsorship opportunities, head to growyourcreditunion.com to learn more. Thank you for listening, and we will see you next time. Take care. Bye-bye.